What up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. You already know who it is. It's Ron Taunt from Wrench-a-holics, and today we are finally going to finish up the dual caliper setup on the 240SX. The only thing that we have to do is mount up the e-brake handle, the hydro, inside the cabin using the Villains bracket. You can go with any bracket, make your own bracket. I just went with this because it's a very high quality piece. I mean, it's very sturdy just looking at it. It's really heavy in weight, so I mean, when you yank on the hydro, it's not going to flex anything inside the cabin. So I went with these guys. Again, you can make your own. If not, if you don't want to spend the time to make your own, you can buy this from Villains. And once we have all that set up, we're going to have to connect the hydro to the calipers. And in order to do that, we went ahead and I got the Villains plumbing kit. You can get any plumbing kit you want. If you decide to make your own, just make sure you know the fittings that correspond to the Willwood master cylinder and also the fittings on the VW caliper. I went with the simplicity of it. It's pretty much going to be like a plug and play. So that's it. So we got a lot to do, so let's get to it. Alright, so the first part of the install is to remove the center console and all associated parts in order for you to mock up the Villains bracket. So I'm going to go ahead and do that off camera and then show you what that looks like when you're about to prep out the holes so that you can drill it and mount up the bracket. So I'm going to do that off camera and then show you what's up. So once you have everything exposed, you have any electronics that ground to one of the bolts on the shifter ring right here, then obviously you got to move those aside, because what you're also going to have to do is trim a little bit of your center console. Well, I should say the dash part now, the dash. You got to trim a little bit off in order to clear the bracket. So we're going to go ahead and mount up the bracket and make sure everything clears. If not, then I have to do a little bit more trimming. Yeah, so pretty much you're just gonna have to cut this off right here just to clear it. Try to make it as clean as you can. Again, I don't know, if you guys want to just hagger it up, you can, but for myself, I am trying to actually keep my interior looking clean, so I'm gonna try to make this as clean as I can get it. So we're gonna go ahead and mount up the bracket and see how that goes. So once you have it all mocked up, as far as the amount that you have to cut right here on the dash in order to clear the bracket, you're also gonna have to do a little bit of cut up work right here on your carpet. Obviously this is gonna be a lot easier if your car was gutted and you didn't have carpet, since you don't have to worry about it, but since I have carpet and I plan on keeping the carpet, I try to make the cut hidden to where you can't really see it. Obviously once you have the e-brake, the hydro right here, you'll be able to see this cut that I made. And another thing that you have to do in order to make the clearance as far as being able to mount the bracket, you're gonna have to take off a bunch of this insulator right here, just so that you can get it as close as you can to the tranny tunnel. When Villains made this kit, I'm assuming they did it on a car that had no interior because everything is really tight. So all this extra stuff, it has to go, or else it ain't gonna fit. Primarily because the holes won't line up if you have all this extra insulator right here. If you try to sit it, it's not going to be flush to the tunnel, and therefore the holes right here won't even line up on the bracket. So if you have clean interiors, if you want to keep a clean interior, try to make the cut hidden, and then obviously you're going to have to take out the insulator. So that's what I'm doing right now. And then right here is where we're going to go ahead and drill the holes. We're going to go prep it out and make sure the holes are where we want it before we drill it. So first of all, we're going to mount it, center punch through the holes of the bracket so that the bolts line up, and we'll go from there. So again, we're just going to go ahead and remove this stuff, mock it up, and then I'll show you what it looks like before we start drilling the holes. So alright, so we had to do a lot of cutting in order to get the ASD hydro and made up to the Villains bracket. As you can see, like this whole cutout here pretty much had to be done in order for the hydro bracket from ASD to actually fit here onto the Villains. I still actually have to cut this portion off. You should be alright cutting this much plastic off, because the actual point where it mounts up where you can secure it is these two screw holes right here. So if you have two screw holes here, this thing ain't going anywhere. So I'm not too worried about it, and I do have carpet, so it should help with some of the play, like right down here in this area, but it's good for now. Again, I had to cut the carpet in order to get the holes in. I'm actually gonna have to drill those on. They're gonna have to patch it up to make it look good. Probably cut a little bit off so it sits flush to the to the villain's bracket, but so far it's looking pretty good. A lot of cutting, a lot of measuring, cut, recut, test fit, so it's just how it goes. If you do have the villain's bracket, the hydro bracket, you should be alright. You shouldn't have to do a lot of work. If you do have the ASD, this is what you're gonna have to do in order to make it work. Just because the clearances are so tight between where the mounting holes are for the hydro bracket to the villain's bracket, it's so close that all this plastic has got to go. So as you can see, this part here has got to go too. So I'm gonna go ahead and just get rid of this part right here. So we're gonna do that right now, and then I'll get back to you in a little bit. Alright, so there is the ASD hydro bracket mounted up to the villain's chassis bracket. I haven't fully tightened it down. I'm having some clearance issues with the reservoir cap hitting and interfering with the e-brake handle. So I might try to bend this bracket here to push the e-brake handle a little bit this way to clear the reservoir cap for the master cylinder, but everything looks to be pretty good. I still have to drill the holes down here. There's 3 holes to mount up the bracket, but I'm pretty sure just by using 2 I'll be okay, as well as using the 4 on top that secure the actual bracket to the car. So there it is. So I just had to redo all the wiring, had to move stuff around, but so far it's looking pretty good. I am kind of bummed that I had to cut up the carpet. I mean, you can do this without having to do this part where you have to cut the carpet. Pretty much you're gonna have to do the install before you even put the carpet in. But for the sake of me trying not to rip the interior, just to put this on, I had to do it. But I'm gonna try to clean it up and make sure that you can't see it. Anyways, it's black, so it's not like it's noticeable. So as you can see, you can't even see where the cut mark is. So I'm gonna go patch that up, make it look real good, and then see if that cutout is enough to clear this piece right here. I'm hoping. If not, I'm gonna have to cut up some more pieces. I'm hoping I don't have to. But that's just the name of the game. If you want to have a clean interior, you got to cut it up to make things fit. So I'm kind of bummed I had to cut it up, but I had to do what I had to do. So there it is. The next time you see me, I should be done and everything should be wrapped up. So I'm gonna go ahead and just finish this off camera. It is kind of hard, it's kind of tedious where I have to keep cutting, fitting, cutting and fitting. So you know, it's kind of hard to pick up the camera to do all of that. So for now, this is where I am. I'm hoping you guys can understand what I'm doing. It's pretty much a custom job. It's not like, oh, you can just bolt it up. If you do have full interior, it's going to be custom, and if you don't, then you just bolt it up and you're all good to go. But for me, I got to keep my interior, so I am doing the most custom job I can probably do in the interior as far as modding, cutting and fitting. So there it is, guys. Almost there, almost there. So here's a little update. This is the little piece that I was talking about that also has to clear the master cylinder and also the whole bracket. So I had to cut that piece out, and I'm also going to have to cut out a little piece over here. I marked it with a marker. I really hate to do this to my interior because this thing was clean interior, nothing was broken. In order for me to run that guy, I had to make sure adequate cuts and provisions on the actual OEM pieces that were interfering with the whole mock-up. I was able to get the e-brake a little bit over, so now it doesn't even touch the master cylinder, so we're good on that. And just another close-up, if I can get it in focus. So there it is. That is what it looks like, all cut up and mocked up. Everything has to be tightened down still, but so far so good. We're getting there, guys. Almost done. Hardest part is making these cuts that I really don't want to make on my clean interior. So we're gonna have to do it. We're gonna have to do it. Alright, like I said before, this is completely custom. There really isn't any guide on how to do this. You just basically have to cut in order to make the clearances for the hydro. Again, if you don't have any interior, you don't have to worry about this, but if you do, this is what you're gonna have to do. This portion right here that I had to make bigger is because there's a nut on the hydro e-brake that connects the lever to the master cylinder, so that nut articulates, and what happens is every time you yank it back, the nut will move back on the master cylinder. So I had to make the clearance so that it could mimic the track of that nut when you pull back on the lever. So that is why that had to be there, and I had to make this cut right here. It looks like a, I don't know what shape that looks like, but it looks like a triangle and then a rectangle put together. I had to make that to mimic the actual bracket shape, so that should fit. So we're gonna go ahead and mock it up, and hopefully this thing works. There it is, finally completed. Like I said, no interferences between that bolt and the top part of that finishing piece for the shift boot, and as well as the bracket. It comes super close to this one, and still, again, I retained all the clipping points on here, so it's pretty sturdy. Next thing we're going to do is clean it up and route the lines. Should be fun. We're almost there, guys. That was a lot of cutting. Again, sorry for not taking any work footage. Only reason why is because I can't really explain to you and tell you this is how you're going to do it, because each car is going to be different. You're going to have your own set of obstacles to overcome, so pretty much just take your time, cut in small increments so that you make sure that you're not really cutting off a lot that you don't want to, and just work from there. But yeah, so next thing we're going to do is route the lines, which should be super simple. They give you directions in the box, so all you gotta do is follow the directions. Alright guys, we are back in the lab. I was unable to get everything buttoned up yesterday since I had some errands to run, but I finally have everything sorted out with the hydro mounted to the chassis, as well as securing the villain's bracket onto the chassis. So I'm gonna go ahead on the underside of the part of the car and show you exactly what you have to do to the bolts. Alright, so this is on the underside of the car. As you can see, there's the bolt sticking through with the nut secured onto it. You're going to want to put some like blue thread locker on there so it doesn't back out. And since I drilled holes through the transmission tunnel from the inside of the cabin, I went ahead and shot some spray paint on there just to prevent some rusting. So, you know, you always want to take that precaution. If you went with the hydro plumbing kit from Villains, this is pretty much what you're gonna get. You're gonna get 2 stainless steel lines that are coated, and then you get 3 banjo bolts. One is for the hydro itself, and the other 2 connect to the calipers. Pretty much that's as far as that goes, since I went with this. But if you make your own lines, obviously it's gonna be all completely custom. You're gonna have to figure it out on your own, but you're gonna have to drill a hole through the rear seats in order to get the long line from the inside of the car to the driver rear caliper, and then the short one is going to pretty much bridge from the driver to the passenger using a double banjo bolt, which is this guy right here. So pretty much it's just a banjo bolt with 2 holes so that you can stack these 2 guys together. So I'm going to go ahead and drill out the holes, or the hole I should say, route this wire, and pretty much work my way from the driver to the passenger. Obviously you're going to have your car jacked up. I already did that, but that should pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that first, figure out where I'm going to drill this hole, and then show you what it looks like when it's all mounted up. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is get the long line and the bolt with the X on it. They actually put that on the bolt from Villains. You're going to take this bolt, or I should say this banjo bolt, and the long line, and you're going to first mount it up to the hydro itself, secure it, and then you're going to route the lines to the back so that you can at least gauge where you're going to drill that hole. I think I already found a spot, but we're going to see if it works, so we're going to do that right now. Alright, so the fitting on the hydro, it's right here, it has a red cap. You're pretty much going to take this off right here, and you're going to replace it with the banjo bolt. Don't forget to use the copper washers pretty much in between banjo fitting the from the line. You're pretty much going to make like a little sandwich, so it's going to be like a copper washer, then the actual stainless steel line, and then a copper washer again. So pretty much you're going to be doing that throughout the entire system, so you can prevent the leak. So I'm going to take this out and install that along with the line. So I'm going to do that right now. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, so the hole right there that's a little bit bigger than that threaded hole, that's pretty much the port that I'm going to be going through, and that threaded hole is the actual bolt hole that goes for the seatbelt. You can actually probably drill through that and just use that as a port, but I don't know if I ever want to put, you know, seatbelts back here. I don't know. I wanted to retain it, but if not, you can just go ahead and drill right next to it. Everything's clear. Don't forget to deburr it and also vacuum all the burrs up because it's pretty sharp. Deburr it more importantly, because when you run the line there you don't want it to rub and chafe and then obviously rip the line or cut the line. So deburr it as much as you can. And then I also shot some paint on it just so that we can prevent some rust. So we're gonna go ahead and fish the line through and we're gonna be good to go. So that hole is 5/8 in diameter, so I pretty much use a step drill. You can just go ahead and use a 5/8, it'll fit. You just basically want to drill a hole big enough for the fitting end to fit through, and then you'll be good to go. So we're gonna go ahead and fish it through and I'll show you what it looks like on the bottom end. Alright guys, so we got the replacement one. This is actually the old one. I don't know if you can see it, I don't think I'll zoom in, but these are pretty much stripped out when I tried to do the install the first time. But now we got the replacement one in and everything is tightened up, everything worked out. So now I'm going to see for leaks. I'm going to go ahead and fill up the reservoir and start pumping out the master cylinder and see if this thing will leak. So hopefully it doesn't, and we're good to go, guys. Alright guys, so we're pretty much done. I already bled the system. Wasn't that bad. I just had some issues with the banjo bolt not sealing on the other side, which is that double one where it's stacked. But everything else went pretty good. So pretty much the way how you bleed them, you fill up the reservoir, you start cranking on the hydro, and you want to start from the caliper that is furthest away from the master cylinder. So you're going to do obviously the passenger side, so you'll do this one first, you'll bleed it, and then you'll go to the driver's side rear caliper and bleed that one. But yeah, so furthest away from the master cylinder, that's it. Just make sure that whenever your helper is you know, cranking on the hydro, every time you release the bleeder valve, you always want to make sure that you tell your assistant to keep an eye on the reservoir, because you don't want that to run dry, because once you run it dry then you have to redo the whole process. So here it is, it's all done. I pretty much just have to put that together. It's kind of out of focus. But yeah, so once I drop this car, I think the only thing I have left to do now is just pull the fender a little bit more, since adding the bracket and the whole villain's kit adds a little bit more offset. So basically it's like a 4mm spacer. I think it's 3/16 of the thickness of the bracket, so that's pretty much, you know, around 4mm of offset. So my fitment's kind of jacked up now, it's resting on the tire, but we're gonna go ahead and roll that out on the next video. I'm just gonna try to button everything up, drop the car, and then call it a wrap. So there you guys have it. Hope you guys liked that install. It's a long one. I had to, you know, this is like the 4th, 5th day. I had to wait for replacement parts, so you know, we had that whole issue of pretty much just waiting for parts to come in. But yeah, car's a mess, so I gotta clean that up, and I'll get back to you. Alright guys, at the end of the video, if you are not subscribed and you watched the whole series, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, support the channel, support me, savageones.bigcartel.com. The link is in the descriptions. Anything that I get off of that website goes back into the channel. I'm beat, I'm tired, but yeah, hope you guys like that install, and as always, hype is for the moment and style is forever. Deuces.